One of the hot topics on the internet today is attorney-client privilege, and if you've given them up, if you upload your documents to services such as ChatGPT. Why do people say that? Let's break it down and see if we can figure it out. That's the topic of today's video. Let's get to it. Let's start with a kind of usual disclaimer for a legal topic. I'm not an attorney. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just a tech guy. So get that out of the way. Also, we need to catch up a little bit on this whole attorney-client privilege situation. Short version is this. So let's say you're part of a litigation and you're talking to your attorney about something, and then e-discovery collection request is made, right? Discovery is made. And the other side says, you have to get all the data over something, right? So you get all the data from your phones, computers, and so on. Well, the communications between you and your attorneys can be excluded from disclosure to the other side. They are private between you and your attorneys. So that's what we are talking about here today. So we have those communications between you and your attorney, and no one is allowed to see what they are. They're private between you and your attorney. But there is an exception. If you take that communications and you disclose it to another party who does not have confidentiality agreement signed or an NDA agreement signed with you, I guess. If those people get to see that communication, then the communication automatically becomes not client privilege. It's no longer protected by the same rules. So where does AI come in this picture? Well, AI is just another party for potential disclosure. So when you take your documents and you upload it to ChatGPT or Gemini or one of those, what we would call a public service, that is considered to be a third party. You don't have a non-disclosure agreement signed with them. You don't have any confidentiality agreement signed with them. And in fact, these services usually keep very detailed logs as to what you do. They log your queries, they log your data, and potentially they can take the data and use it for training. And that's why if you were to use Google, ChatGPT, or any of these public services, it is considered disclosing data to a third party without confidentiality agreement. So does that mean you can't use AI to analyze your documents? No. This is where other types of services come in, just like Azure Private Cloud, right? So when you get an LLM model from Microsoft Azure, it is covered by a completely different set of rules. There are different agreements that you become part of when you sign up for that service. There are different rules as far as data collection, monitoring, training, and so on. Short version is they don't do any training on your data. They do still log a lot of stuff, and kind of oddly, people not really aware of it, but it doesn't matter. So when you use services like Azure or AWS where you host private models, well, that data is considered, I guess, private and covered by those restrictions where it's not undisclosed third party. And in that case, you are okay, you're not violating any client privilege and you cannot be challenged that you've given up that privilege. There is also a third option, which is kind of falls in between the first and second, right? So on one hand, we have completely like public services like ChatGPT. On the other hand, we have a private cloud model, right? But there's also this in-between service where you can sign up for API access. And when you do that, you have a completely different set of rules that being followed as far as data collection and so on. Now, I believe when you sign up for that, it is going to be fine. You're not going to be violating any client privilege. But again, I don't know. You have to read the individual agreements that you go into. So that's where you can use your own C# application or something like that and call ChatGPT API and have it analyze document for you or something like that. So that's kind of the in-between area where you really have to read the agreement, talk to an attorney, and make sure you're aware of where you're putting data in and what possibility that they'll do with your data, what could happen to your data once it's uploaded. But just like everything in legal, there are no exact rules for things. Everything can be negotiated, challenged, debated, and so on. So These are, I believe, are pretty good sort of starting points to help you get your head around things. Public services, absolutely no. You cannot put clients' data in there. You're going to be in trouble, especially if something happens. Your private cloud, like Azure and AWS, those are fine. And then your API access falls somewhere in the middle. You really have to read the agreements and see what's happening there. So that's my opinion on the matter. And if you have an opinion, put it in the comment section below. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you on another video.